guys, welcome back to 428 Shibuya Scramble. This is TJ Gamer Girl signing off. So, last episode, Achi went to his old hideout to see if he can get Susumu to help to give us backup for the meeting with Alphard, and Kano and Hitomi left a little early so they could make it to the meeting because Achi was apparently taking a while. They're in keep-outs. So the only person we have left is Minorikawa. Oh yeah, poor Chiaki got hurt. Hey in there, Chiaki! Just keep it together! Minorikawa rushed to her side and offered her a hand. Surely it hardly matters at this point. You're not going to make it on time regardless, Katayama said coldly. And in any case, if 4-star General Gossip doesn't get released, it's Mr. Toyama who's going to be in trouble, not you. I dare say the world would be better off with one third-rate gossip rag less anyway. Shut your mouth! Chiaki snapped. If the gossip doesn't come out, I am going to be in trouble. An article I've written is supposed to be in next month's issue. It's a piece I've worked my very hardest on to the very end. A piece Mr. Mino saw fit to put in print. And so if that goes away, if all of that goes away, yeah, I'll be in trouble, alright. Chiaki's legs wobbled as she struggled to get back to her feet. Chiaki, Katayama said, your zeal is a marvelous thing. Worthy of admiration, even. But when it comes to work, results are all that matters. I'm sad to have to put it that way, but I must be honest. It's just common decency. Katayama glanced at his pocket watch. You have 57 minutes and 10 seconds remaining. At this rate, you won't even make it to the interview venue before your time's up. Frankly, I don't think even a further extension of your deadline would make any difference in the end. Damn it! Minorikawa ground his teeth. He wondered if he should just leave Chiaki here and go to interview S.O.S by himself. He could expand the article on S.O.S, then work a small part of Chiaki's interview piece in to at least fill the layout. Right now, the single most important thing was getting the magazine out the door for Toyoma's sake. But if he did cut most of Chiaki's copy after all she'd done, he might wind up totally killing her passion for being a writer. I had to stop waffling. Professionals don't let their personal feelings dictate their decisions. I can help Chiaki work through her emotional struggles later. Chiaki, that's enough! The young woman got to her feet, staggering as she began to climb the stairs. I'm not giving up, she said under her breath. I can't give up now. Though obviously in pain, she struggled to keep her legs moving. Damn, I can't do it. Look how hard she's fighting to stay in the game. I can't tell her I don't need her article now. Releasing the next issue of the Gossip wasn't just going to save Toyama. It would save Chiaki as well. Minorikawa couldn't abandon either one of them. Which left him with a hell of a dilemma. He needed to make a decision. If he didn't stop wavering soon, they'd be out of time. But try as he might, he couldn't come up with a plan. Then he heard a familiar voice from behind him. If you're wondering what path to take, allow my taxi to be your guide. Dude, perfect timing! Minorikawa spun around there to see Kimizuka standing there. Where to, sir? The driver asked. Despite his polite demeanor, his pride was obvious. Mr. Kimizuka, I appreciate the thought, but with this traffic... Traffic? I see nothing of the sort. Okay, sure, but... Minorikawa was well aware of Kimizuka's capabilities, but the prospect of cutting through the chaos that currently filled the streets was more than a little daunting. When you know this town as well as I do, there's nowhere you can't go. Alright, what other choice do I have? Guess I gotta trust ya. This will be my last request of the day. Minorikawa pointed down the street. Take us to Inferno in Uraharajuku. Inferno in Uraharajuku. The bar? Kimizuka quirked an eyebrow. Yes, is something the matter? No, nothing at all. Hurry up and get in. As soon as Minorikawa and the others had climbed into the cab, Kimizuka tore off through Shibuya's network of narrow side streets. Katayama's going to think this guy is insane. The passengers in the backseat jostled roughly back and forth to the sound of screeching tires. This is altogether far too excessive, Katayama murmured, wincing as his head bounced repeatedly against the window. Ow. To think we allow such inconsiderate driving here in this country. Chiaki, meanwhile, had opened her laptop and was somehow working furiously to finish her copy. The sound of her fingers clicking across the keys echoed within the vehicle. How's it going, Chiaki? Minorikawa asked. Just a little more. Her eyes were glued to her monitor, her face all seriousness. Kimizuka glanced over at Minorikawa. If I may ask, sir, what business do you have at this bar? Just a little interview. I hear a local gang called S.O.S. uses the place as their big hangout. You're interviewing S.O.S.? Sir, I feel it might not be best to get too involved with that lot. There was something about the driver's warning that seemed a little off. Do your taxi driver connections tell you what S.O.S. is up to? Minorikawa asked. Originally, they were something of a vigilante corps, in the name of keeping the neighborhood clean and safe, but lately I hear nothing but bad things about them. Those loan sharks had said something very similar. Minorikawa reminded himself that he'd better be on his guard. Katayama chimed in. And just how do you plan to go about interviewing a gang like this? That's nothing for you to worry about. I have a plan. Uh-huh. And just what exactly is this plan? It's secret. Katayama gave him a derisive grin. Clearly he wasn't impressed. Minorikawa turned to look at Chiaki. She appeared too engrossed in her copy to even hear the conversation. I realize this is for work, Kimizuka said worriedly, but do you really need to take such risks? Yes, I do. I've already gotten knocked out by a bomb. There ain't no risk that's more dangerous than that. Minorikawa thought back to that look on Toyama's face. That look when he finally regained his confidence. He couldn't let Heaven Publishing go under. Toyama provided a canvas on which Minorikawa shared his art with the world. Thinking about it now, Minorikawa realized he'd always been chasing Toyama's shadow. Though it was galling to admit, that man had been the ideal Minorikawa strove to live up to. That was why he'd hated seeing Toyama reduced to such a pathetic state. He wanted Toyama to retain the indomitable, to keep busting down any and all obstacles in his own peculiar way. Still, Minorikawa wasn't about to voice his feelings aloud. He felt more than a little embarrassed to be taking it all so personally. When you take on a job, you give it 100% every time. That's what makes you a professional, he said. Wouldn't you agree? I do indeed, Katayama chimed in, but you'll have to demonstrate that 100% in the limited amount of time you have left. Which, by the way, is 51 minutes and 30 seconds. And I will not budge in the slightest on that submission deadline. Please do keep that in mind. The man took another look at his watch. I've got half a mind to break that thing, Minorikawa told him. But breaking my watch will not stop time. Minorikawa shot him a furious glare, but Katayama's composure was unwavering. The guy was unflappable, and the only way Minorikawa was going to be able to put him in his place was to meet the damn deadline. Easier said than done, though. He'd wanted to use 30 of the 51 minutes he still had to write his article. That only left him 20 or so to get to material. Kimizuka suddenly slammed on the brakes and the cab skidded to a halt. Minorikawa stared through the windshield in shock and saw a smallish, boxy minivan weaving erratically along the road. Whoa, look out, that thing's heading our way! Don't worry, sir, the driver replied. Just leave this to me. Keeping his cool, Kimizuka dexterously steered them clear of the oncoming vehicle. As the minivan sped past, an eerily cold breeze wafted over the taxi. Wandering angels! to return the dry ice machine they used in their performance and no electronics. The machine's malfunctioning. What the heck was that? Minorikawa asked. I'm not sure, Kibizuka said, but let's hurry on our way. Nimbly manipulating the gear stick, he stomped on the gas once more. Here we are, sir. They pulled up outside of a dilapidated old pool hall. You're a lifesaver. Minorikawa clapped a hand on Kimizuka's shoulder. Just be sure to be careful, sir. Minorikawa nodded. Huh? What? Chaki asked, looking up. What are we being careful about? Nothing, Minorikawa said. You just wait here in the car. You've still got that copy to finish up, yeah? Well, yes. Alright then. Chaki frowned, but resumed her typing. And you wait here too, Minorikawa said to Katayama. But of course, that goes without saying. Incidentally, you have 49 minutes and 6 seconds remaining. Minorikawa did some quick mental math. With the half hour he'd already set aside, and left him 19 minutes. However dangerous S.O.S might be, he couldn't afford to hesitate for even a single second. Bracing himself, he stepped out of the taxi and headed for the pool hall. And Minorikawa just looks like he's just done. He's just done with Katayama. Done with time. Phew. Minorikawa took a deep breath as he approached the grimy door. Here goes. He drew his back leg and gave the door a hearty kick. Did you really have to be so aggressive? The mob of young men inside the bar turned as one at the sound of the door crashing open. Who the hell are you? Several of them started toward him belligerently. Just calm down and hear me out, he said. I've come to interview you. Interview us? What the hell for? These were hot-headed punks, all right. They seemed to be itching for a confrontation. Minorikawa felt like a punch might come flying his way at any moment. Then another voice called out from further back. Hold up, guys. It was a young man seated in the far back corner of the bar. His air of authority marked him as the gang's leader. That must be Susumu then, Minorikawa thought. When you say interview, do you mean for TV? Or like a magazine? Mind telling us who you are? Name's Minorikawa. I'm a freelance journalist. I'm doing a magazine piece about young people in Shibuya. All I'm asking is just for you guys to answer a few questions. Here's it. I've completely forgotten about that. I don't remember if I said methane. Huh. Susumu sounded less than enthused. Just 5 minutes, Minorikawa said. What do you say? Nah, I'm not in the best of moods right now. Go on, get out of here. Right, Minorikawa thought. He's going to make things difficult. But he hadn't expected these troublemakers to just up and accept an offer to appear in print. Now was when the real battle would begin. Guess I'll just have to write my piece without your help then. Susumu took the bait and shot a look at him. Write about what exactly? Your little warehouse raids? Warehouse raids? Susumu raised an eyebrow. What are you talking about? Really now? You're gonna tell me you don't know your boys are dealing in stolen goods? S.O.S doesn't steal, man. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. Oh yeah? Why don't you ask those two over there? He spotted the two fellows he'd seen arguing earlier at the scene of the explosion. Now he pointed them out. Their faces betrayed their alarm. Susumu glared at them. Is this true? They averted their eyes and said nothing. I asked you a question. Have you been stealing stuff? After a long moment of surly hesitation, both of the young men nodded. You idiots! Susumu marched up to the trio and without warning decked them both. How dare you sully the S.O.S name! As the two gang members cowered, he continued to punch them repeatedly. Okay, enough with the beatdown. Minorikawa stepped up to intervene. Let's get down to business here. I won't reveal anything about the warehouse raids. In exchange, you give me my interview. How's that? Not a bad deal, I'd say. But Susumu ignored him, continuing his pummeling of the pair. Whoa, hey! nobody's gonna play nice with the guy who flies off the handle and beats people, you know. What'd you just say? Well, look at yourself. You're clearly not the cream of the crop here, kid. At that, Susumu's fist finally fell still. The rowdy bar went completely silent. Say that one more time. I dare you. I'll put your ass on the ground. The gang's leader's eyes were red with rage. Minorikawa snorted, unafraid. That's the exact sort of line I'd expect from a total wuss who's all bark and no bite. Shut your damn mouth! Get the hell out of here! Oh, this is hilarious. S.O.S.'s top dog is such a yappy little puppy. Susumu snarled like an animal. You son of a bitch. I'm gonna beat your ass. Mr. Mino, I'm all finished! An ebullient voice resounded suddenly through the bar. Cheery and full of energy. Good old Chiaki. Chiaki! Minorikawa looked and saw that both she and Katayama had appeared in the doorway. I finished my copy! Could you please look it over for me? She thrust her laptop out proudly. Susumu stared in bewilderment. Who the hell are you? Oh, I was under the impression you S.O.S folks were, being interviewed? Oh, that wasn't Katayama. That sounded like something Katayama would say. Oh, I was under the impression you S.O.S folks were, being interviewed. Chiaki broke off haltingly. Yeah, you're right about that. One by one, the gang members started to close in around her. Well, it's just... You look like you're really angry is all. Oh, do we now? That's because we are pretty damn angry. Good grief. Katayama groaned. It would seem that getting your interview was quite impossible. By the way, you only have another... You shut up! Minorikawa snapped as Katayama peered at his watch. Just leave this to me. You two hurry up and get out of here. No way, Chiaki said. Why not? Because. I want you to read my copy, Mr. Mino. She looked him right in the eye. Now is not the time to be stubborn. It's still time for any session. He had to wrap this. Alright. He didn't have much of a choice. He'd postponed the interview to read over Chiaki's copy. Alright, he said. Let me see your laptop. He held out his hand and started to make his way over to her. Whoa! Before he could reach her, though, the S.O.S punks had Chiaki and Katayama surrounded. Ooh, what's this? Something important? One of the gang members reached out to grab Chiaki's computer. Knock it off! Don't touch that! She struggled to resist. Leave the girl alone, you scumbags! Minorikawa barked. The young men in the bar stopped and turned. Susumu was quick to respond. Screw you, man. Who are you calling scumbags here? Angry, any guy who raises a hand to a lady is a scumbag. If you're looking for a fight, you can fight me. Just get your hands off the girl. Minorikawa did his best to look unafraid as a couple dozen vicious gazes turned back on him. Bring it on, Susumu said. Hey, someone go stand and look out up front. He snapped his fingers sharply. Get him. At the signal, Susumu's men quickly closed in on Minorikawa. It was like being caught up in a tsunami. He took a hard punch to the face, and his vision went blurry. Before he could react, he was hit again, twice, thrice, with punches and kicks. The moment his first assailant paused, another joined in the assault. 4 blows, 5 blows, 6. Minorikawa lost count somewhere around 30. Jesus Christ. A metallic taste filled his mouth, and he could feel his consciousness fading. All the strength was being battered from his body. He couldn't even tell if he was standing on his feet or lying on his back. Then finally he let himself crumple to the floor. Even then the beating didn't let up. As he writhed helplessly, the young men kicked him in the gut over and over. Stop it! He heard Chiaki shriek. You're going to kill him! Eventually, Minorikawa forced himself to go limp. Finally, the kicking stopped. Ah, crap, one of the thugs muttered, sounding panicky. Did we take this a bit too far? Mr. Mino! Chucky rushed to Minorikawa's side, sobbing. Please, she cried out. Answer me! He held his breath and said nothing. Mr. Mino! Tears streaked down her cheeks. She shook him desperately. Don't worry, he gasped out at last, holding up his hand to stave her off. She let out a yelp of surprise, staring at his battered face. He could feel blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. He turned his grisly visage on the gang members as he painfully rose to his feet. Abruptly, Minorikawa broke into peals of mocking laughter. Mr. Mino, I think he's finally lost his mind. And Chiaki stared at him aghast. He only laughed harder. Seems he took a few too many blows to the head. Poor thing. Katayama averted his eyes, unable to watch. Minorikawa shot out an accusing finger at the crowd. Looks like I win this round. What? Susumu blinked, dumbstruck. Don't you get it? Minorikawa said thickly around his bruised tongue. What am I saying? You're a bunch of idiots. Now then, if you'll pardon me. Oh, I get it. Minorikawa was halfway through the exit when Katayama's exclamation rang out. You were planning all along to let these guys beat you up, huh? Minorikawa jerked to a halt, his shoulders trembling. You knew they turned down the interview, and so by letting yourself get beat up, you'd have something to put in an article, yeah? It's a bit bogus, maybe, but I guess it's one way to get material to fill your pages. Minorikawa broke out into a cold sweat. Shut up, you idiot! But Katayama continued with his oh-so-brilliant analysis. You sure put a fast one on this game here. I wonder what sort of headline your piece should have. The twilight of Shibuya's legendary street crew. Form a vigilante squad, now mere gang of common thugs. Something like that, maybe? Susumu stared daggers at Minorikawa. Go on. I dare you to write that up. Then we really will put your ass in the ground. He moved to block the path to the door, clutching a broken beer bottle in one hand. You moron! Minorikawa bellowed at Katayama. I was this close to pulling it off. Well, that's a shame, isn't it? Katayama replied. Minorikawa rolled his eyes. Gee, you think? Susumu slowly advanced on them, beer bottle at the ready. Incidentally, Katayama said, you have 40 minutes and 7 seconds left. Good luck. Minorikawa hung his head. Was everything futile at this point? No, because Achi is coming in right behind you. Alright, cool your jets. I'd say that's quite enough. Oh, it's Kimizuka. That was Achi. Susumu stopped and spun around. Kimizuka had entered the bar. The taxi driver stared out sternly from behind his sunglasses. All the young men in the bar fell silent. Minorikawa and his companions exchanged glances. Aw, man, you? Susumu's face twisted up in awkward embarrassment. Kimizuka's tone was light and playful, but intimidating nevertheless. Whoa, hey now. That's no way to address your teacher. Teacher? Minorikawa blurted out in disbelief. Kimizuka nodded. Yeah, until last year I used to be a teacher, but I got into a bit of dispute with my school, so I moved on. These guys in here are all former students of mine. Sorry that there's such a bunch of good-for-nothings. Wow, Chiaki said. I'd never have guessed. I thought since I wasn't their teacher anymore, it wasn't my place to butt in. But I couldn't sit idly by and let one of my customers take a beating. Kimizuka turned it back to Susumu. This guy totally played you. Every last one of you. Susumu bit his lip in frustration. Still, it's hard to imagine anyone would want to take a beating from this many guys all at once. So it's hardly your fault for falling for it. Kimizuka has switched gears from taxi driver to street smart mentor. You guys lost this one, he said. And for that, you need to give him his interview. No way, Susumu looked disgusted. Look here, kid, Kimizuka said. Let yourself save some face and help the man out. And maybe you won't come off as a bunch of total idiots in this article. He flashed an amicable grin. Well, when you put it that way. Fine, alright. Susumu blew out his breath in resignation. Susumu, you can't just let yourself cave like that. Oh, hi, Kiryu. The remark had come from a particularly nasty-looking young fellow who slouched in the sofa bar. Minorikawa recognized him, the kid he had encountered earlier that afternoon, wandering around with a wooden cudgel. You shut up, Kiryu, Susumu said. So what? You're just gonna let S.O.S make a mockery of itself? Kiryu demanded. The gang leader let out an annoyed growl, but said nothing. And do you still think you've got what it takes to run Shibuya? Shut up! I've already said I'll do it. Kiryu sneered sullenly at Susumu's outburst. Mr. Mino! Minorikawa was just letting out a sigh of relief at being able to get his interview when Chaki scurried back up to him. Please, can you read my copy now? Her face showed a strange mixture of confidence and unease. Alright, he said resignedly. Let me see it. The proofing deadline was drawing steadily near. Still, if the piece wasn't good enough, he'd have to make her rewrite it again. He wasn't going to compromise on quality. Bracing himself, Minorikawa stared at the monitor. Chaki swallowed hard, so anxious that it was audible. Minorikawa gave the piece a fast once-over, then read it again more closely. When he was done, he closed his eyes considering. Chaki held her breath, waiting for his response. It's okay. She looked back at him blankly for a long moment. Really? It's really okay. Is it really, really okay? It really is really okay. Minorikawa watched in surprise as she broke down in tears. Oh, thank you so much! Chaki bowed profusely. He gave her an affectionate little ruffle atop her head. She wiped at her face with her palms, scrubbing away the tears. So I guess I never really told you what sort of articles I want to write and all. No, I don't think you have. Well, I mean, I switched it up. Well, I mean, I want to write socially conscious exposés like you do, Mr. Mino. And so, to hear you say that an article I wrote is okay, that makes me really, happy, I guess. Or maybe moved? Her eyes were still bright with emotion. Well then, really. There was actually another writer who took inspiration from his work and who strove to be like him. Minorikawa had never thought a day like this would come. It was a peculiar feeling. He'd always been the follower, chasing after interviews in order to be more like Toyama. It made him feel both bashful and proud that the skill and soul he'd honed might be passed on to the next generation. Right, I should be off. Kimizuka gave Minorikawa a slight nod. Minorikawa returned the gesture, but more deeply. You really have been a tremendous help today. I'm not sure where I'd even be right now if you hadn't been there for me. Oh no, not at all. I was just driving a customer around to get where he asked me to go. Oh, that's right. I still owe you a fare. Opening his wallet, Minorikawa saw he had only a 10,000 yen bill. Still, now was no time to be frugal. Keep the change, he said as he handed it over. But even as he said it, Kimizuka was already handing him the money back. Some money back. Here, I insist. The driver had already counted out the exact change in advance. You really are a pro, huh? Minorikawa took the money and stuffed it into his pockets. We'll meet again. Somewhere out there on the streets of Shibuya. Kimizuka pointed his index finger at Minorikawa's face. Minorikawa responded in kind. After that, the interview with S.O.S went off without a hitch. The tension was diffused. These were just a bunch of ordinary young guys. The juxtaposition of their appearance and their behavior would make for an interesting piece. So, About what you said earlier, Susumu said once Minorikawa had finished his questioning. About how I'm not the cream of the crop. Yeah, that. I just said it to get you worked up, don't worry about it. Well, let me just ask you what you really think then. How do you think I could be a better leader? I don't know. I'm not really the sort of guy who wants to stand at the top, you know? But I guess I can tell you 2 things that'll make things go more smoothly with you and your buddies. Susumu leaned in, listening intently. Forgiveness. And also trust. Minorikawa chewed over his own words. The events of the day replayed in the back of his mind. He'd forgiven Toyama for his faked suicide, and he trusted that he'd regain his reporter's edge. He'd forgiven Chiaki for her bungled interviews, and trusted that she'd grow as a journalist. In the end, that's what it was that helped him through. Forgiveness, followed by trust. Susumu grumbled softly. Forgiveness and trust, huh? Doesn't sound so easy. People gravitate towards somebody who can handle things when they get tough. With that, Minorikawa got to his feet. Now we've got all the articles we need covered. Chiaki rushed over to his side. Well, I guess we still need Mr. Toyama's piece. I just got off the phone with my office, Katayama said casually. It seems they've already received the data from him. Well, what? Guess he really can get the job done when he applies himself. Minorikawa felt an inner surge of pride. Now then. He indicated Katayama. How much time do we have left? 30 minutes remaining, Katayama replied, eyeing his watch. 30 minutes, huh? Looks like we might make it after all. Chiaki, laptop. Right! With a beaming grin, Chiaki held out her computer. Minorikawa got ready to start typing. But then a young man barged in the ball. Achiendo! There we go. We got his jump ready. The newcomer hurried over to where Susumu was sitting and promptly prostrated himself on the floor. Whatever this was about, it looked like a big deal. Who was this kid? The gang's feelings looked decidedly mixed. I need people to bring a guy down. I'm here to ask for your help. I know I have no right to ask you this, but please, I really need your help. As Minorikawa listened to the young man's conversation with Susumu, he could feel his blood start pumping. It sounded like they were talking about the terrorist plot in which Shibuya had become embroiled. Hey, Chiaki, he said quietly. Did you hear that just now? I did. I'm not sure I follow all of it, but it definitely has the whiff of a major scoop. Minorikawa shot her a daring grin. So what's the play here, Chiaki? We interview him, of course. But we only have 30 minutes left, right? So we take 10 minutes for our conversation, and use the remaining 20 to write up the piece. I'll help you out. You learned good, kiddo. Minorikawa ruffled Chiaki's hair again. They both blushed profusely, gripped by a surge of excitement. Why are you doing this? I can't make any sense of it whatsoever. Katayama stood peering at them skeptically. If you write up the piece you just did your interview for, you'll make your deadline. Why go out of your way to trouble yourself further? There's no trouble, Minorikawa said. I'm just doing what a professional does. That's all. Katayama let out a solemn sigh. Good grief. He looked at his pocket watch again, then slapped it shut. Well, if you weren't concerned about the time, then do as you like, I suppose. I'll admit, you've made me quite curious to read this magazine you're putting together. Minorikawa and Chiaki rolled their eyes as they turned away. Already they were making their way over to Susumu and his gang. The interviews aren't over until you have what you need. You refuse to let them be over. You spend every last second you have to do the best job you can. That's what being a professional journalist is all about. Minorikawa cracked his knuckles and stepped between the two young men. Sounds like you've got an interesting story. Mind letting me hear it too? And that's Minorikawa's story done. And we got the the jump for Achi's keep out. So, we'll be continuing Achi in the next episode. Till then, this is the Gamer Girl, signing off.